moving on to this story with RFK Jr. I don't know if you guys have heard this new news. RFK Jr.'s campaign has been basically switching strategies. Last time I talked about this campaign, I told you that the strategy was from the campaign was to focus on key states, not all 50 states. Now that appears to be changing. And there's also a particular party that he seems to be interested in. And I think you guys are going to want to hear this. We're going to talk about this clip here first from Fox and Friends, where they're talking about ballot access. And he also brings up the issue with why he left the Democratic Party. And then we're going to fast forward into talks of possibly joining another party and how people are taking that. Let's jump in.
Of course, you're running as an independent. And right now, when you look at the very latest Gallup poll, when people across the country are asked, how do you self-identify politically? Look at this. The number of independents has gone way up. I see a Quinnipiac poll with independents. You are beating Joe Biden and Donald Trump. In battleground states, you beat Donald Trump and Joe Biden with young voters.
Look at this, guys. Look at how things have changed from 2020. Again, obviously not that long ago, right? 39% of them, I think it's actually higher than this, but 39% that were polled said they considered themselves to be independent. Now it's 43%. Increased, right? 29% said they were Republican. Now it's 27%. 30% said they were Democrat. Now it's 27%. And that's the Gallup poll.
The Harvard-Harris poll, you beat Donald Trump and Joe Biden in favorability. So right now you got the wind at your back running as an independent. But, you know, you come from one of the most famous Democratic families in the world. Is the two-party system broken?
It's definitely broken. And I think more and more people are seeing how corrupt it is. And the corruption is increasing. You know, there was a Bernie Sanders, some of Bernie Sanders' followers sued the Democratic Party a couple of years after 2016 in federal court.
Right.
And for fixing the vote against Bernie.
It's the Becks. I just want to add this in here because I interviewed them. So it's the Becks. They are the lawyers that actually filed the DNC fraud lawsuit that he's referring to.
And the federal judge said, yeah, it is against their own rules. They violated their own rules, but they are a club and they're allowed to do that. And that ruling gave the party, empowered the party with permission, because before that they were at least pretending to be neutral in elections and to not fix the outcome. And now they have no restraints, and you've got, you know, all this corporate money pouring into them, you know, from these big military contractors, from the pharmaceutical companies, and both parties are receiving the money from the same groups, and it's fixed against it's rigged against the American public.
Of course, the system is such that you've got to get ballot access on all 50 states. We're just about out of time for the segment. Are you going to be able to do that?
Yeah, we will be in all 50 states and the District of Columbia.
All right.
Okay, so that's a change from the strategy last time. Now he's saying that they're going to be in all 50 states and DC. Before, they were focusing on a handful of states, basically trying to disrupt that percentage that is needed from a Democrat or Republican to win over, you know, the electoral college votes. Their focus at that point in time was to try to shake that up a little bit and make it so that it defers back to Congress. It becomes a tie, and Congress is the one who breaks the tie, etc. I told you I understood it, but I didn't really agree with that strategy. I didn't think that was the best strategy going forward. And I said I thought that Jill Stein actually has the best strategy because in reference to the ballot access. And I think Jill will be on. The way things are going right now, I would not be surprised if Jill Stein is on the ballot in all 50 states, right? So he's changing strategy. But there was something else as well that I thought was interesting. There was a rumor going around that Donald Trump Trump's campaign actually was interested or reached out to RFK Jr. As a possible VP. Well, apparently now that is actually being debunked. The Trump team is saying They did not do that. Listen to this.
That. I do want to ask you about this exclusive interview, RFK Jr. saying the Trump team has gauged his interest in the vice presidency. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
I would not take that job. But I'm flattered that President Trump would offer it to me, but it's not something that I'm interested in.
What do you make of this? Do you see Bobby Kennedy potentially in a Trump cabinet role if Trump is elected?
I don't really, but I also think there's an important point to be made here right off the top, Natasha, which is that the Trump campaign denies any such approach. Chris LaCivita, a senior advisor to the former president, says, just want to get this quote right, no one from the Trump campaign ever approached RFK Jr. or ever will. Now, clearly, Mr. Kennedy has a different version of those events.
So there seems to be some miscommunication there. So RFK Jr. said he's not interested, obviously, in being Trump's running mate. But also, according to this gentleman, he's saying that the Trump team is saying that they never approached RFK Jr.'s team in reference or inquiring about him becoming vice president or running mate for Donald Trump. So I don't know. There seems to be a little bit of miscommunication, but I did want to make sure that I did clear that up, give you a different perspective, because I've seen multiple stories that said Trump's team reached out to RFK Jr. Obviously, RFK Jr. says he's not interested in doing that, but now they're saying they did not do that.
But I would find it difficult to see Kennedy going into a Trump cabinet, though they do share some, I suppose, common ground in terms of skepticism of the US aid to Ukraine, in terms of skepticism about COVID vaccines, frankly. Those sort of issues provide some sliver of common ground.
Okay, I wish we had more time.
Okay, so I wanted to clear that up. Now, here's the biggie wiggy. Now it appears that I told you he's changing his strategy. I don't know how this is going to go well, but apparently it appears that RFK Jr. is now possibly looking at the Libertarian Party. Now, this is something that I predicted actually earlier on in his campaign, that if he broke away from the Democratic Party, I could see him possibly trying to run with the Libertarian Party. The question that I have for you guys, particularly if any of you watching are Libertarian, do Libertarians support that? I think you're going to see quite different responses. Some people do support it, some do not, because they feel like RFK Jr. actually does not align with some of their policy positions. Obviously, there's the war in Gaza, which is a big one. You guys know the Libertarian Party is anti-war. But apparently there were other issues that were mentioned as well. I'm going to bring this up when we pull up the comment from Dave Smith, who is not feeling this, but it came from this interview here with Michael Smerconish. Listen to this.
Going to get on those state ballots?
Yeah, we'll be on the ballot in every state. I mean, as you pointed out at the beginning of the show, we got into New Hampshire. People said it would take us weeks to get the signature. We needed 3,000 signatures in New Hampshire. We got 5,000 in a single day. So we have a ground team that, in all of the states where we can collect signatures, we're doing that now. There's about 27 states, Michael, where you need a vice presidential candidate to start collecting signatures, but we have until August, so we're not going to have a problem getting on the ballot. We will be on the ballot in 50 states and the District of Columbia.
Is it?
There was something he said there I wasn't quite sure about the vice presidential candidate. Let's go back one more time because I just want to make sure I heard that right.
We're doing that now. There's about 27 states, Michael, where you need a vice presidential candidate to start collecting signatures, but we have until August, so we're not going to have a problem getting on the ballot. We will be on the ballot in 50 states and the District of Columbia.
Is it possible that you will seek, as you are running as an independent, you will seek still to be the Libertarian candidate, which would assure you getting on all 50 state ballots?
That's something that we're looking at. We have a really good relationship with the Libertarian Party. I'm going to be speaking at the California Libertarian Party convention. I think it's next week or maybe in a couple of weeks. And then we're talking about me speaking in New York. But, so that is, and then we have our own political party now in 6 states. which have rules that make that give us an advantage to have our own political party.
So let me pause here for just a second. So this is RFK Jr. saying that he is considering being a part of the Libertarian Party ticket. I do want to make sure I let everyone know this for those who are not aware. The Libertarian Party does have a candidate. I'll pull that up in just a second. Or Eric, if you have a chance, can you pull up the candidate for the Libertarian Party? I think his name is Mars or something. I don't know. Or I'll pull it up. But they do have a candidate. Doesn't mean they can't have more people like challenge each other or whatever. But I think my biggest thing is, where do they align on the issues? Because it's not just about thank you, Eric. It's not just about the war issue. From what I understand, RFK Jr. also supports some type of gun control. So there's the gun control issue as well. There's the tricky part about the reproductive rights also. So I don't know. But listen to what Michael says here about what Angela said, who is the leader of the Libertarian Party.
We're not going to have a problem.
I ask you the question.
I
ask you the question because Angela McArdle, the head of the Libertarian Party. Catherine, do we have the sound of this, by the way? Tell me quickly. Okay, I want to play something for the audience. This is the head of the Libertarian Party on my radio show in the fall. Roll it.
So we've had a lot of good conversations and we're on good terms. And I respect his decision to want to go independent. The Libertarians really admire the strong position he took against mandates and lockdowns. And so we're going to stay on friendly terms and see what happens.
Bobby, make some news. I mean, it sounded to me like she's welcoming you to come in and ask for their ballot position.
Yeah, but that statement, if I remember correctly, and thank you, Eric. If I remember correctly, I think that statement was when RFK Jr. had just announced that he was running as an independent. That was, if I remember correctly, because I thought I covered this on the show. That was also before the war in Gaza. That was before RFK Jr. made the statements that we need to give Israel everything that it needs so it can fight back against Hamas. And thank you, Eric. The candidate for the Libertarian Party is Lars Mapstead. I thought there was already somebody there on the list. So I just wanted to add that piece because Smirkonish here doesn't mention that. He doesn't mention where that audio came from, the time frame. That was when RFK Jr. announced he was running as an independent. That was before October 7th. That was before the statements that RFK Jr. made about giving Israel everything that it needs to fight this war. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, well, we are talking to the Libertarian Party, and I feel very comfortable with most of the values of the Libertarian Party. And, you know, like I say, we have good relationships. I'm talking regularly to libertarian groups. So we'll continue to do those talks. I can't give you a headline news story today, Michael. I'm sorry. Ask about something different.
Okay. Well, I'm out of time, but you'll come back and I'll ask again.
So that was a interesting way to end that interview. But somebody is not for this. And that person is comedian Dave Smith. Now, this caught my eye when I was on X. I don't know if everyone's familiar with Dave Smith. He's a comedian. I know he's been on Pasta's show before. He said, I have admired many aspects of RFK's campaign. His opposition to, the mandates, tyranny, the war in Ukraine, and the deep state have been nothing short of heroic. However, his support for the war in Gaza is disqualifying. We are the anti-war, non-interventionist party, and that's non-negotiable, period. He will not be our nominee, and I will do everything in my power to see that. So Dave, who apparently is a part of the Libertarian Party, is not feeling this at all. There's the war factor, but then there's also some of the comments that people have made here. Mark says, Dave, do you see how many floating abstractions there are here? Why won't you have me on to discuss? Dave said, no, I don't see that, but I'm happy to discuss. There was another one here from Kevin who says this might be one of those moments where libertarians demand purity and once again get nothing. Who you got on the wings? So that would be Lars Mapstead. To answer that question, there is a libertarian candidate. This was the part that got me. Matt Strickland. He's also interested in some gun control. That's the biggest disqualifier. This is very interesting. I should have asked Larry Sharp to come on and talk about this. This is very interesting. I don't know, man. I don't know. It seems like some people in the Libertarian Party support RFK Jr. running through the Libertarian Party, but it also sounds like some of them do not. So I don't know. I guess he would have to go through the process just like everyone else. But I guess the question that I have for you is this. Do you believe it's fair for a candidate to run under the party if they don't meet all of the principles of the party? And how important are the principles to you, right? This brings up the partisan issue again. RFK Jr. is not my candidate, but there are quite a bit of people who are interested in him and do support his campaign. And I'm curious to see what would happen if he were to run under the Libertarian Party. They do have ballot access in all 50 states. So it'll be interesting to see, guys. Interesting to see.